Initiative for Nuclear Free Great Lakes. And it is my honor to present Dr. Arjun Makhijani, who will be presenting The Way Forward Without Nukes. Yes, indeed. Arjun Makhijani is president of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research in Tacoma Park, Maryland, with a PhD specializing in nuclear fusion. Dr. Makhijani is a recognized authority on energy issues. Since 1971, he has published numerous articles, reports, and books on energy and the environment, including Carbon-Free and Nuclear-Free, a roadmap for U.S. energy policy, and that was in 2007. Dr. Makhijani has testified before Congress and served as a consultant to several state utilities and UN agencies. Dr. Makhijani is also known as Dr. Egghead in his monthly pamphlet and some tremendous question and answers back and forth. He'll be presenting for about 45 minutes, and then he'll do a question and answers for about 20 minutes. And then at 5 to 12, I'm going to have some announcements. Without any further ado, Dr. Arjun Makhijani.
I'm very pleased to be here. Being in a famous university reminds me of the time I was a student in the University of Bombay, and I wanted to come here for graduate school, and I applied to many famous places. I don't think I applied to the University of Chicago. Was it not famous in 1960? No, I didn't know about that reactor when I was applying to graduate school. And then I thought it'd be nice to go to school in the capital of the United States. And I applied to Washington State University. And they gave me this wonderful assistantship. And I said yes, and I found I was 3,000 miles off. And anyway, I went, it was good. And then I did my doctorate in California, and that was even better. How many of you recognize the guy on the left, on your left? Oh, this is a very good audience, more than average. David Freeman, father of energy policy in this country, in my opinion. 5 years ago, he made a speech at a conference. You recognize the woman on the right, Helen Collicott. And Helen had a conference on energy in 2006, about 6.5 years ago. And Dave and I were both speaking there, and Dave made a speech in which he said we should get rid of nuclear, we should get rid of coal, and we should get rid of oil and go to solar. So 2006. Solar was about $8 a watt at that time. It's very expensive. And I went up to him and I said, you're going to send every industry we have left to China. You know, this is not you haven't said something that sounds sensible to me. And he said, well, don't be well, he uses more salty language than I do. And anyway, he said, don't be a naysayer. You haven't done the technical study. And it's true that I've been working on nuclear disarmament for many years and the pollution caused by nuclear weapons production and some on energy, but since the mid-80s I haven't done a whole lot of work on energy. And Helen said, you know, the planet is in intensive care, and I'll show you only one slide about that. This is the most important thing that we could be working on. If you do the study, I'll raise the money. And this is, of course, an offer that no one who runs a nonprofit can refuse. And so I said, okay, but I don't promise you a positive answer that it's possible to do this in a reasonable time and reasonable cost. You know, if you have unlimited money, you can do it. And so I went into doing this book, Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free. And the title really did come after I finished my research. I didn't start with this idea. I started only to look at whether it was feasible technically with the technologies that either we had in hand or the technologies that we had in hand whose costs we could see reasonably in the next 10 years. So this isn't predicting what will happen, which I hope will be more efficient and better than what I calculated, but I concluded at the end of a year's research that to my own surprise, that you could actually get rid of fossil fuels, not just in the electricity sector, but from the whole energy sector, if we were only willing to have some guts and be sensible. Tomorrow you will hear the German story about that, which is, I think, going to be probably the first major country to make that come true. But when I wrote this, this was kind of sticking my neck pretty far out in 2007. So we don't have one energy problem. We have 4 energy problems. Well, we used to have 3 until Washington got involved. And now we have 4. So we have, of course, the climate problem. Then we have the oil and war problem, the oil insecurity problem. The 20th century has really been, to a large extent, a century of war for oil. One side of it, anyway. Then we've got the nuclear insecurity problem and all the water problems and other things that go with it. And now, you know, since Washington got involved with the food and corn and ethanol mandates, now we've got a food problem associated with the, supposedly with renewable energy, which is not a very sensible way to do biofuels. There is a sensible way to do biofuels. I won't talk about it. So this chart is from 2007, when there was the first big surprise of Arctic ice melting in the summer. The red line there, this red line, is the median projection in the model. So, you know, you have to give the right wing credit for being right about one thing. When they are skeptical about the climate models, they are right. But they're not skeptical in the right way. Actually, the models are incomplete and imperfect, and the modelers will tell you that. But most of the things, or many of the things that are not in the models, actually would indicate a worse outcome, unfortunately. And so this, this thing was the measurement. So you see a sudden fallout. This is the threshold effect. This is your climate cliff. Now, instead of the median of complete summer melting being somewhere way out there in the 21st century where we don't necessarily want to think about it, it is now maybe 2015, next year, 2020, 2000. Okay, we don't know, but it's much sooner probably. And now this is pretty widely acknowledged, which was not acknowledged by many at the time. So we've got a climate cliff to worry about more than fiscal. Okay, so nuclear, you know, all energy sources, you know, you produce solar panels, you're going to have some carbon dioxide pollution. You produce nuclear, you're going to have some. You produce wind turbines, you're going to have some. In an economy where you have coal, you're going to have some. You're going to have some carbon pollution from anything. But if you get rid of the fossil fuels, you know, nuclear is a low CO2 source of energy. So is solar, so is wind. We're not lacking low CO2 sources of energy. We're lacking time and we're lacking money. And nuclear is bad for both. So I'll tell you a little story from Texas. In 2000, so we've had this too cheap to meter and then the hangover from the too cheap to meter, which is really a come-on story. Not quite, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. But at least if you bought the Brooklyn Bridge, the bridge is there. There have been more than 100 nuclear power plants that the public paid for that never got finished, that never generated any electricity. Now, in Texas, they announced that the South Texas 2 new reactors would be $6-7 billion. 2 reactors, $6-7 billion. And so some groups hired me to say, well, what do you think the cost is going to be? And I said, I think it's going to be between 12 and 17 billion. And I had a press conference about it in front of City Hall. And the utility, which is a municipal utility, wouldn't tell us at the time what they were willing to pay for their 50% share. And then slowly the truth started creeping out, and they said 13 billion, and then, already it was a scandal, and I was looking very golden there. 13 billion was well within my range. And then it turns out there'd been a little bit of a kind of, did somebody say cover up? Anyway, there'd been some attempt to hide the actual price. There's not going to be a nuclear renaissance, fortunately, either. The cost is at the center of it. So $7,000 to $10,000 a kilowatt. The GE CEO, Jeffrey Immelt, said in 2007 that if he were the CEO of a utility, he was asking for nuclear subsidies. Now he makes nuclear, he makes gas turbines, he makes wind turbines. That he would do wind or gas. He would not do nuclear. So, part of the nuclear enterprise is to be takers and to go to the government and say, give me money, and then have the nuclear. And very often they can't, even then they can't do it. Or they go to the ratepayers, or both. He said it's a bet the company risk. Progress Energy has a project in Florida whose current cost estimate is $24 billion for 2 reactors. That's about, over $10,000 a kilowatt, or thereabouts, upper end of that range. And they're collecting money from ratepayers. I don't think they're ever going to build it, but they're not obligated to give back the money if they don't build it. That's the law in Florida.
Living healthy is more than just counting carbs and exercising, it's a lifestyle choice. Embrace sound, natural alternatives, cultivate and sustain a better way to healthy living. The Health Hut offers a wide selection of vitamins, minerals, herbs, medicinal mushrooms, women's and men's supplements, as well as a vast array of skincare and beauty products. Their friendly, knowledgeable staff is always on hand to help you choose the products that best suit your individual needs. The Health Hut. We have your good health in mind.
For nearly 9 years, West Michigan Driving Academy has been providing Muskegon County with complete, comprehensive driver's education. Students spend time both in the classroom and on the road in a state-approved driver's education vehicle with state-certified instructors. West Michigan Driving Academy is the only school in Muskegon that offers both day and evening classes throughout the summer. Accident-free with 150 years of combined experience, you will drive safe at West Michigan Driving Academy.
Hi, I'm Brenda Harris with Nexus Realty, turning dreams into an address. I support DSETV.
So besides cost, what is the problem with nuclear? These are centrifuges. That's the kind of plant in Iran that is causing global concerns about proliferation. But we built one in New Mexico. Did you know that a centrifuge uranium enrichment plant was started in New Mexico in the last few years? Many of us here tried to stop it, but we did not succeed. Then we would have to build 3 plants like this, 2 to 3 plants like this every year, somewhere in the world, if we tried to solve even part of the global CO2 issue with nuclear. That's, of course, Kristen already showed you the plutonium button. This is a different picture of the same thing. We make 90,000 bombs worth of plutonium in nuclear reactors every year. If you try to solve maybe 40–50% of the electricity generation problem to displace coal. Not a very good, listen, all a nuclear reactor is, it's a boiler. It doesn't do anything high-tech. It just boils water. We're making plutonium just to boil water. Some people might say, duh. Okay. Now you can boil a lot of water in one tank with not much uranium, but we're still making plutonium just to boil water. And if that is the limit of our technological innovation, you have to call on extraterritorial powers to help us. And then there's the proliferation connection. The creators of the nuclear enterprise knew this. Oppenheimer said that he would hide the nuclear weapons enterprise in a nuclear power enterprise if he had to go for a nuclear weapons convention because other people may cheat, you know. I think Native Americans know very well that the United States never cheats and on treaties. And the Saudi foreign minister made a very interesting statement in 2006 in which he said, what, me? Bombs? No, really, we have a problem with Israel having bombs, and we have a problem with Iran that may have bombs, but we're going to do it in the open, and we're not going to. But we call on Israel to renounce nuclear weapons, and but we're going to build nuclear reactors, even though we have a lot of oil, and we have more solar energy than we could know, and he didn't say that. El-Baradei also said the rush to nuclear power is a lot about getting de facto deterrence. Okay. So these are, you've heard, you're going to hear a lot about the various waste problems. Won't go into it. I want to say a word about France, because everybody said, we have to be like France. They do 75% nuclear, and they extract the plutonium for recycling. And some people even say that they reuse 90 to 95%. That statement is wrong. It only contains, the French only reuse about 1% of their spent fuel. And they have a surplus stock of plutonium sitting there at La Hague on the Normandy Peninsula. Worldwide, we have enough surplus plutonium. We have enough surplus, it's the same amount of surplus plutonium in the civilian sector as there is in all the nuclear weapons, in all the nuclear weapon states put together, namely Russia and the United States. The French have polluted the oceans all the way to the Arctic from their reprocessing. The British, of course, you know, they pollute the English Channel and the British pollute the Irish Sea, so it's all okay. And now I have to tell you, I'm not anti-French. I'm very pro-French. I love the French. I sleep with one of them every day. The same one. I love French food, I love French trains, their health system is very wonderful, we could learn a lesson or two. But this, they did under duress, and they really, right now, they're worrying after Fukushima, what if we have that here? What's going to happen to the Bogo? What's going to happen to the wonderful cheese? What's going to happen to our great gastronomic traditions? And it's a beautiful country. Those of you who haven't been there should go. Okay, this was Fukushima before, this is Fukushima after. I won't dwell on this. The reason to show you Fukushima, the one point I want to make is, in the last few years, it's become very clear. You know, you hear nuclear is base load, and that's why we should do it. But nuclear is base load until it's not. It's 24/7 until it's 0 over 365. So now Japan's 53 out of 54 reactors are shut. So they have nuclear 0 over 365. It doesn't matter why they're shut. It's a technology that, for a host of reasons, more than a handful, that can go overnight in an unpredictable way, so you can have an accident and it'll blow up on you. Of course, that one's done. But then all the other ones were done too. Now that won't happen to a natural gas-fired power plant or a solar. You know, we had a wind turbine blow off a blade somewhere in the Midwest last year. Just the most catastrophic thing that can happen to a wind turbine. And fortunately, these things are a little bit out, isolated, nobody got hurt or killed. And that was it. 1.5 megawatts gone, which is, you know, a little more than 1 in 1 million. We have 1 million megawatts of power in the U.S. electricity grid. So 1.5 megawatts. Nobody noticed it. Nobody died. It was a little bit of economic damage. And all the other wind turbines didn't get shut down. We didn't say, oh, well, you know, we're worried that all the other, you know, we're going to have wind turbine blades raining down on us, and so we shut them all down. We've got, several nuclear power plants shut down over here for various reasons. We had an earthquake in Virginia last year, and that shut down for a couple of months suddenly. So it can go. Must be doing something wrong. You'll hear tomorrow about how the costs of solar have evolved, but solar, I think, is already on a large scale, kilowatt per kilowatt cheaper. It's intermittent, so it's not directly comparable. But baseload wind plus storage, is cheaper and less risky, or at best at the cheapest end of nuclear costs that are projected, comparable to nuclear. And baseload wind is a term that I didn't invent. Baseload wind is something that the National Renewable Energy Lab talks about. So let's talk about making plutonium to boil water isn't sensible. Using a lot of water to make electricity is not sensible to the place where we're headed. So we should try to get out of the thermal mode, which means we should try mainly to get out of coal and nuclear. To have a more secure grid, we also need a distributed grid. But the first thing we need is efficiency. So this is your average house, nearly 60,000 BTU per square foot. This is Hanover House in New Hampshire. Not fancy, not expensive, but well built, thoughtfully built. So the most important thoughtful thing you need to do when you build a house is to know where south is in the Northern Hemisphere. and then you build it tight. This thing has no solar photovoltaic panels. It has solar thermal water heaters and a very large tank. It's heated by solar thermal heat and has efficient appliances and has only 15% of the energy footprint of a normal house. Same in the commercial sector. This is all very economical. This house costs in today's dollars about $150 a square foot to build, and it's got lots of custom features because it was built by the guy that cared a lot about where he lived. Now, why don't we have houses that are built normally that are this efficient? This building actually could use efficiency improvements. University of Chicago, please. Seriously, revamp your heating system. Thank you. And I'm not one to complain easily, but please. I give you free consulting advice if you take my way to come and spend a day. And anyway, builders don't build efficient houses because there's no percentage in it for them. It has to be regulated. Apologies to Milton Friedman. Because they're selling you the beautiful azaleas, they're selling you the beautiful windows, they're selling you the granite counters, out of which you could get radon, but most people don't know that. And you go in, how did I buy the house I live in? We walked in, there was light, it was a beautiful kitchen, it was the kind of house, there was space to arrange and put all the members of the family that we hoped to accommodate in there, and we loved it, and we said, yeah, that one. And then we found it was very inefficient, and we're spending a lot of time, fixing it up. The builder's selling you that, yeah, I really want this place, this is where, and that's the way it should be. You want to buy a house or rent a house that's a living space for you, for how you want to live. It should come efficient. For that, in order to level the playing field, so regulations are about leveling the playing field for public sector or the private sector.
Is your loved one's health failing? Do they need the aid and attendance of other people for their daily living activities? Were they a veteran? If so, it is possible that they are eligible for a special pension called Aid and Attendance through the Veterans Administration that will assist in paying for their health care needs. There are 4 eligibility factors to consider, and you can find out if your loved one is eligible for any of these benefits just by making a phone call to elder law attorney Anna Duggins. She can be reached at 231-722-5415 or you can email her at aud@parmenterlaw.com.
The Pizza Ranch, featuring a buffet that is guaranteed to please even the pickiest eaters. From a full soup and salad bar, pizzas and breadsticks, to mouth-watering roasted chicken, potatoes and gravy, vegetables, drinks and desserts, all for just one price. Their menu features a wide variety of delectable favorites. You can dine in, carry out, or have your meals delivered. There's something for everyone at the Pizza Ranch.
Calculated by the American Physical Society, and you can see this is a few years old, so this is a little bit obsolete cost. Now it's about 10 or 11 cents of residential electricity. All these things are a lot cheaper. The average cost of doing all of these things together, even the most expensive ones and the cheapest ones, is about right there. So 1/3 the cost. Why aren't we doing this? Is because the market won't give this to us by ourselves. And the reason we actually have efficient appliances is because we do have regulation, and I'll show you. So this is what happened in the last 30, 40 years since the first energy crisis. 3 appliances, gas furnaces, the black arrows are national standards, state standards. So state standards went into effect. Now what is the political message anybody gets from this chart? Is there a political message here? There is a technical message, obviously. Anybody know what that is?
You need standards.
Sorry? You need standards. No, that's the economic message. What's the political message? Okay, so you have to look at the color of the arrows. States came first. The federal government is a follower. Right? So that's the lesson of U.S. history that this immigrant has to give you. Is the U.S. government is the follower. In good and bad things, states come first. So make sure the state where you live is first in the good things and not in the bad things. So I'll talk about refrigerators. So this is the history of refrigerator standards. When I first started working on energy, not in 1947, the 1970 there, I started working on energy about that. Refrigerators were 100 kilowatt hours per cubic foot per year. And you can see this is the cost of refrigerators. Let's see which one is it. This is the cost of refrigerator. A frost-free refrigerator costs about that much. So you can see the efficiency went up. So now the energy consumption is only 20 to 25% of what it was back then. 75% of the energy consumption is gone. And I actually wrote a letter to Milton Friedman asking him to comment on my review of his book, Capitalism and Freedom. Maybe his heirs here, the intellectual heirs at the university will do that. If I find out who that is, I'll send it to them. But he did not respond to me. He sent me a letter saying he wasn't interested. You can see that with regulations, not only we got more efficiency, it became cheaper. Thank you. So, government is always present in the marketplace. You know, government makes the money that is the blood of the capitalist economy, or any complex economy. All right, so between Germany and the Pentagon, we may actually get somewhere. So this is a solar panel and a PIP base that we built in 2000, this dates from 2002. This would be sufficient for 250 houses of the Hanover House efficiency. So if you build houses to that efficiency, but that one doesn't have air conditioning, so that's a little bit, so not quite 250, maybe 100, 150 houses. All right, so this is a sunshine on a bright day, but you know these aren't always bright. So people tell me, so what are you going to do when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine? Well, I know. Before I finished my book, I knew the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't shine, and you may get, you know, nights that are very still. And of course, by definition, the sun doesn't shine at night. By definition, I know that. So this is the ideal insolation curve, but I haven't learned how to download so I have solar on my house, and I can track each panel all the time, every half hour. I have to learn how to put that little movie into my slideshow. I haven't done that yet. But when cloud spot, you can lose most of your generation in a very short period of time. It's a problem that you have to deal with. Also, I won't go into, I'll illustrate this with pictures, but there are a dozen ways to deal with that problem. First of all, when you put wind and solar together, so very often you have wind at night, so you have a complementary situation. So this is one, so you might need energy storage. First of all, you don't need energy storage where we are today. Until you reach 20, 25%, where Germany is now, or where Denmark is now, Texas sort of approaching. Did you know Texas was the leader in renewable energy in the United States?
No.
Yes, it is. I like Texas. I do. I go there quite often. I have lots of fun. When you pump air into a cavern, when you have excess wind energy that nobody wants, you pump it into an underground cavern. Now this is known technology in the electricity sector and also known technology in the natural gas sector. Because you may or may not know, a lot of our natural gas is stored in underground caverns, because you can only put so much in the pipeline and use goes up and down. And so in order to accommodate the ups and downs of uses in natural gas, you have storage caverns. So you can pump it at the efficient rate from the wells, and then pump it and then withdraw it or store it, depending on the demand. And so you do the same with air, and when you pump it out, you have a heater, you heat up the air, and some people are even trying to recover the heat that you get from compressing the air and putting it in the cavern, and then you generate electricity through a normal gas turbine, and you put it in the grid. So you get what is called base load. Where's my base load? My charts are not in order. This is the National Renewable Energy Chart. I'm Indian, so you have to settle for some nonlinear. So this is base load wind. So these yellow parts are where you're generating from storage, and these orange parts where you have excess that you're putting into storage, and these green parts is because we don't have a smart grid, and where we have too much wind energy, and we're wasting spilled wind energy. Okay. I'll talk about spilled energy. So that's one storage method. Another storage method is, so this is an excellent nuclear system. So the nuclear reactor is up there. It's free. It's a thermonuclear reactor, safely 93 million miles away, and is using technology that was actually made for fission nuclear reactor at Oak Ridge in the 60s, or thorium reactor actually, molten salt reactor. And so you are storing heat in a molten salt, and then you extract heat from it. So this is a thermal generation system. But you can actually, if you do the power towers, this type of storage, you can actually store at high enough temperature that you don't need cooling water, and you can still get reasonable thermal efficiency. So you only need to clean your clean your solar panels, solar mirrors. This is so you can store wind energy. Did you know you can store wind energy in frozen meat? Here's what somebody thought of in Holland, I think. So there are commercial food freezers. So the food is stored at a certain temperature. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, probably, minus 10 Celsius or something, below the freezing point of water. Well, when you have surplus wind, what if you store it at minus 11 or minus 12? So you can lower the temperature of your frozen meat or frozen peas if you're a vegetarian. And then, when you don't have enough wind, you can just turn off your cold storage compressor because you don't, and let the temperature rise back to the normal cold storage. Of course, you have to make sure you're not destroying your meat and your peas in terms of the flavor and consistency. So there's a little bit of food research to be done in this storage system. But this is more straightforward cold storage, is with this air conditioner, which is now commercially available from a company called Ice Energy. This is courtesy of Ice Energy. I have no commercial interest in Ice Energy. And you make ice when the wind is blowing. And then, see, this is a house in Sacramento, an efficient house with a solar panel. So this is its normal, this light blue line is the normal demand on the hot summer day in Sacramento. And then this is the model. If it had ice storage, you see the peak demand just goes away. So you store ice whenever the energy is available, and then at the peak of the day, you get air conditioning from the stored ice. So you can store energy. You can store energy in your hot water heater by making a little bit hotter. You can store energy in heat in bricks for the winter. So if you have electric heating, there are many ways to store energy that we already know. Many of them are quite economical. Today, in the United States, mostly we don't need to store renewable energy because we don't have enough of it, and the existing sort of hydropower and natural gas systems can manage this. Now, this company is not doing that well, but the batteries under that hood are quite interesting because they can charge and discharge a lot more times than what you will need over the life of a typical car. So you can use it together with the grid. And when we have, I say when, we have an electric car system, going from a fossil fuel centralized system to a decentralized distributed grid will become fairly simple because most of the cars are parked most of the time. In fact, you only use about 5%, cars about 5% of the time. And so when you go to the airport, actually at National Airport I did see a Nissan Leaf plugged in over there. They have an electric station where you can plug in your car. Now that car is going to be charged up pretty soon before the person comes back. And then National Airport could make a deal with a grid operator and that can charge and discharge that battery according to the needs of the grid. We have all this technology. In order to make, we're not that far from economical, sensible electric cars. Batteries are about a factor of 2 more expensive, and they are about the energy density, the amount of energy you can store in the battery needs to go up by a factor of 2. So together between cost and performance, we're about a factor of 4 away from the gasoline car. So I think gasoline cars will become obsolete in the same way that stones became obsolete. We'll have plenty of gasoline, we have plenty of stones, but we're no longer in the Stone Age.
I've had dozens of people tell me, just cremate me when I die and then throw a big party. I'm sure you've heard someone say that too. I completely get it. Well, I want to help you throw that party. I've got tables and chairs and easels and boards. I've got sound systems and music. I've got caterers and food. And I've got all the people to set it up and break it down when it's all over. So why don't you let us here at Clocks help you with that party? so you can focus on what's important, sharing the stories.
ASAP Auto Sales, located at 2486 South Getty Street in Muskegon, offers a wide selection of reasonably priced used vehicles from cars and trucks to vans, SUVs, and four-wheel drives. With new selections coming in every day, ASAP's lot is always full, which means whenever you drop in, there's about 100 vehicles to choose from. With a wide selection of vehicles, both domestic and import, they have it all. ASAP Auto Sales, 231-830-9000.
Appliance shopping can be confusing. At Seaway Appliance, we make it easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, we have a great selection of home appliances to choose from, and we offer competitive pricing.
2, the staff is friendly and knowledgeable, and our customers can enjoy a no-pressure experience.
3, we have our own professional service department.
Plus, because we're a brand source store, you know you're getting the best deal possible, saving you money.
Where are you going to shop for your next appliance or TV? Seaway Appliance. Thank you for your business.
Seaway Appliance.
farm in Japan. So this Japanese technology, we think they use it in the United States on a pilot scale. So I've already shown you that. This is the technical chart that corresponds to base load wind. This is how the thermodynamics of it will work. So we put it all together in 2 studies we've done, and we're starting a third, which will be more advanced and detailed and will have more milestones. But you know, in carbon-free, nuclear-free, I kind of gave an overall roadmap and a concept and a cost estimate. And then people said, well, you haven't shown every hour of the year, 8,760 hours, what happens when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, all that. How much storage do you need, how much will it cost, et cetera, et cetera. So we did a renewable Utah study and a renewable Minnesota study in which we modeled. This is just 1 month, but we did this for every month. We got actual utility data for demand. How much are people using in the main utility in Minnesota and Utah? Not in the same study, different studies. And then we got actual renewable energy data from the National Renewable Energy Lab. We downloaded it. We got the solar energy data. We got the wind energy data. So all this, the yellow solar generation is the summer wheat. And the blue, I think, is wind generation. And so you can see, this is, the black line is the demand. That's how it goes over the course of a week. You know, daytime, nighttime, and so on. And this is your air conditioning and evening peak, you know, when you all come home, air conditioning, and then turn on the lights and the TV and start cooking and all that. And when you have surplus, you store. And this green is generation from storage. So one very interesting thing you can see is you can have very low renewable at night. So daytime is not necessarily when you run into a peak problem when you have a renewable system. You could run into it at night because you have no sun and you have very little wind, and suddenly you're emptying out your storage. And you can see actually it happens at night more often in the summer than in the daytime. And so you're storing energy. This is a winter week in Utah. That was a summer week in Minnesota, so I'm showing you pieces of our 2 studies. But we showed it can be done. We calculated the amount of storage that would be needed. These are 100% renewable, well, a small supplement of natural gas that could easily be biogas. So this is a kind of a, then we figured out where a smart grid would fit in. So this is kind of a brute force renewable system. That you have enough renewables and enough storage to accommodate all demand at every time. How many of you know when the defrost cycle in your refrigerator comes on? I don't know. It would be a really smart person if you knew, a well-instrumented fridge. It's okay, so nobody knows. Do you care? Okay. So suppose the defrost cycle in your refrigerator came on when we had an excess of weight. Or you sent your dishwasher, so their dishwasher came on, unless you were right after a party and you had really a lot of dishes. The dishwasher came on when there was an excess of renewable energy and your storage was full. Or your clothes washing machine. And you had a smarter sort of thermostat and that could adjust 1 degree up and down instead of all completely on, completely off. You could make a much cheaper system. So if you have to do a brute force system, you see there's a very large part of your system, about 20+% that you're only using for 77 hours in a year, less than 1% of the time. Very expensive. And another large part that you're only using, 225 hours in the year, about 3% of the time, something like that. You see, that's the cost of the most expensive. What we use at home is $100 a megawatt hour, so 50 times more expensive than last piece. We can get rid of that by simply lending our defrost cycle and most of our clothes washing by going to a smart grid. Now, are there privacy concerns with a smart grid? Yes, sort of. If you care that the utility knows when your defrost cycle is going, I would recommend that we have, or you might care more if they know when you turn on your dishwasher or not. We can have demand aggregator to obscure when people's dishwashers come on. We know how to do this. All the technology is here. Hurricane Sandy has shown us. I will close with this one example. On March 11th, before the nuclear disaster, there was a tsunami. And the tsunami actually caused an enormous amount of damage. It wiped out the port of Sendai, which was the closest large city to the earthquake, which was offshore. And it wiped out the transmission and infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure in the port, and of course everything went dark, even the parts that weren't flooded, except for one place. The Tohoku Fukushi University did not go dark. The Tohoku Fukushi University had a microgrid consisting of a natural gas generator, solar photovoltaics, and storage that was operating with the grid in normal times, and then when the tsunami came, it disconnected itself from the grid. And the essentials, the elevators, the lighting, there's a hospital and nursing facility, the nursing laboratory, the essential equipment kept operating. Can you imagine how different the situation in South Manhattan would have been if we had microgrids? How much less disruption there would have been if we had... We know how to do this. Tomorrow you will hear that the Germans have become the can-do country. They're doing it. Do we have the guts? So what is lacking is not the technology. What is lacking is not whether it's economically feasible, because with climate we're spending more and more money to protect ourselves from emergencies. The bill in New York and New Jersey is going to be very high, and that will have to be done all along the Atlantic coast and all along the Gulf Coast. It's going to have to be done, otherwise we're going to have this most likely every few years. We're going to see one of these things. We're having 100-year storms every few years. And I showed you that Arctic ice melt chart. Maybe I should say one thing more about why that chart is important. The sea level isn't going to rise because the Arctic ice is melting. It's just floating ice in the ocean. But the ocean becomes hotter. And Greenland becomes hotter. So that whole area is going to become become hotter. The Arctic area is getting warmer much, much faster than the average of the planet. And the Greenland ice is the important part. I understand there's a film about chasing ice. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to. That's the part we have to worry about. And lots of other things that we're kind of beginning to assess. Nobody thought about the disruption of families as a result of a nuclear accident. But now we have to think about that. Similarly about climate, we're going to have to protect ourselves. Microgrids, smart grid, renewables can protect us against catastrophe, minimize the damage, but can also help minimize those things because we're also getting rid of carbon dioxide pollution at the same time. I think what is going on in the country right now with people who are for the environment and for more economic and social and environmental justice, insisting that we not have a socially, economically, and environmentally unjust system, at least in a minimal way that we should rectify the problems accumulated in the last 30 years. I think we can bring that same kind of force to give. I told you, states are first, people are first, even corporations many times, not all, but many corporations are ahead of Washington. The Pentagon is ahead of most of Washington because they know they're wasting lives and treasure by transporting oil to battlefields. We need to get some real guts and spine into energy policy in this country. 5 years after my book was finished, I thought at the time that it would take us 40 years to get it done. I think if we really have the guts, we can do it in 25 years. We can have a completely renewable energy system that will be more reliable, and I'm saying this today, I didn't say it then, than the current system, more resilient to disaster, and certainly more environmentally friendly and more responsible to our children. Let me close in Chicago, where the first nuclear reaction happened. Let me close with a personal thought. I've often said, that I don't think I would have had more moral wisdom than Einstein, were I here in 1939. Einstein wrote the letter to Roosevelt, or signed the letter to Roosevelt that started the whole thing going. But I have also said that I hope that I would have had the moral courage that Joe Rothblatt had in December 1944, when it was clear that Germans didn't have an effective bomb project. And he said, my job is done. That was before the first plutonium was separated. Before the first plutonium was separated, the chain reaction had happened here, but the first plutonium had not yet been separated at Hanford. There were microscopic amounts for experimentation that had happened, out of Oak Ridge and so on. But no bomb project plutonium had been separated by early December 1944. That's when this enterprise should have stopped. Some people in this university, to their credit, actually did try to prevent the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But I think when Einstein eventually reflecting on it said it was the biggest mistake in his life, signing that letter. Leo Szilard also, I think, regretted it, the inventor of the concept of the chain reaction. The Manhattan Project is often put forward as a project of brilliance. If you have a problem in society, people all say, we should have a Manhattan Project for energy. I'm not so hot for Manhattan. We've already seen that, been there, done. Brilliance is not enough. So the big lesson of the nuclear age is brilliance without a moral anchor can be a very big problem, a bigger problem than no brilliance at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the 150 years we've been in business, many things have changed. Our greatest achievements are rooted in the things that haven't. Years ago, the person you called banker was also the person you called friend. When it came to service, there were fewer layers and friendlier smiles. And banks earned the trust of their customers and community while working tirelessly not to lose it. At Independent Bank, all this remains true today. Sure, we've made advances that help customers bank more conveniently and more comfortably. But at the end of the day, we know that people really need a trustworthy partner committed to their financial goals, dreams, and aspirations. And we've been happy to be that partner since 1864.
Hello, Muskegon. My name is Mark Dewitt. I'm the owner here at RPM Automotive. We've been here since 1996. We're a full-service auto repair center. We do both foreign and domestic repairs. Most of our repairs are performed same day. We do everything from AC, engine repair, and computer diagnostics. Feel free to call or come by and see us. We're located on Getty Street, next to the Getty Street Grill.
Taking the money that's being spent on nuclear, both new and maintaining, fixing old, and putting it directly into renewables. And could you give us a sense of a cost comparison? I've heard that we can do all the renewable we want in 20 years with that same money.
Well, I gave you a cost comparison on one of my slides. Wind is already cheaper even with storage. Solar on a large scale is getting there. Solar on an intermediate scale, I think, is less risky and comparable to the middle of the nuclear costs, unsubsidized. So I think we're already there. The problem is that the money that is going into nuclear is not in your pocket or my pocket. You know, it is mandated to go to the nuclear industry from like construction work in progress in South Carolina and Florida and in Georgia, and these companies are collecting public money by force of law. It's really much worse than a tax, even though they are supposedly anti-tax political environments, because it's very unaccountable. They don't have to finish. So the trouble is that it's not yours or mine to redirect that money. And so that's why we go ways like renewable portfolio standard and so on.
Keep it coming, quick.
Thank you so much for coming and presenting, and thanks for coming to Chicago. I've heard concerns and I've read concerns about electromagnetic frequency and radio frequency bombardment by smart meters and all the appliances that will be connected. And I'm wondering what truly is the health dangers and risks.
Well, you know, this is not my area of study, so I'll give you my best take on it. First of all, it's very different than the kind of radiation that we've been talking about because it's non-ionizing radiation. It doesn't split apart your DNA molecules. Something doesn't get into your body and replace a non-radioactive hydrogen with a radioactive tritium and so on. That's not the way it causes damage. You know, there is possibly a risk from various parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. It would appear to be small if it is there. I think the spectrum of smart meters is similar, to the best of my knowledge, from cell phones. There's at least one study that indicates that holding the cell phone against your ear, it causes a small increase in brain tumor risk. But only on that side of the brain. So that can help us sort out this mystery. So your smart meter is maybe 20 or 30 feet away, and by the time the radiation from, so all of them have to communicate with microwave towers. And so the signal strength, I haven't looked at the signal strength of smart meters, but probably very similar. So I think by my rough back of the envelope calculation, the radiation that reaches you inside your house, typically from your smart meter, is a very, very tiny fraction that reaches you from your cell phone in your pocket. And certainly a very small, which is a very small fraction of what reaches you when your cell phone is against your ear. Because it goes down as 1 over the square of the distance. So if you're 1 inch away and the radiation is 1, if you're a foot away, the radiation will be less than 1% of that, 1.07%. My quick math is correct. And so if you're 20 feet away, it's a very, very tiny fraction. So I think there's, just like there's pollution from solar panel manufacturing, there's pollution from wind turbine manufacturing. There's no clean way other than learning to switch off, other than changing our habits, consuming less and living more frugally, to actually reduce the footprint, our footprint, without creating another footprint that we hope is small. That said, I think we're implementing, so whatever the risk of smart meters may be, and I'm not well studied in it, that's the caveat. I think it is small compared to cell phones. And both of them have some benefit for us. If you have non-microwave smart meters, they also will carry some risk because you have to find some other way of communicating that signal. You have a cable, you have fiber optic cable, you have some stuff that we need a communication system in our electricity system. We need our electricity system to become much more like the phone system that we have now, rather than the Ma Bell landline system that we have. So the grid that we have now is sort of like the Ma Bell landline system. Very centralized, it's reliable, but it works, but it's punch card IBM machine. We need something more like the smartphone system, in which you have a communication system between the consumer and the producer, between the substation and the producer, so when a tree falls somewhere, the utility automatically knows where it falls, so on and so on. That's what a smart system means, among other things.
Two very quick questions, because we have a number of announcements, and then we got a break, and we got to be back early. So, quick questions.
My name is Bob Johnson. I'm a professor at Michigan Tech University, but not in engineering. I teach rhetoric, so I like to play with words. And I'm interested in education, and you began some about how we're starting to do some power plants, nuclear plants in South Texas and in Georgia, and I just published a book which is unabashedly self-promotional and called "Romancing the Atom." And in the book I have a chapter on the political nature of nuclear power now. And the thing that was amazing for me is the easiest chapter to write, because what I wanted to go after was a phrase which was that we're CO2 free, that nuclear does not create CO2. And of course that's a lie. I mean, it's a huge lie. And but when I went to look at the politicians and some of the powerful people in the country who are making the decisions and driving the decisions to fund and come up with the subsidies to create nuclear power plants, it was the easiest chapter of the book to write, because I went after quotes that they had, and they all said it doesn't emit CO2. And this is everybody from Barack Obama to Lamar Alexander to Stuart Brand to Bill McKibben. I mean, it's just amazing. So my question is, how do we educate these very smart people who have already gotten somewhere in their lives?
Well, we need to get the facts right ourselves. As I told you during my talk, there's no zero CO2 source, but there are many sources that are much closer to zero than coal or oil. So the numbers are, coal is 1,000 grams per kilowatt hour, 900, give or take. Natural gas combined cycle is 350. Better if you have a really new plant. Solar, depending on where you install the solar and how you made your panel and how efficient your solar cells are, maybe 30, 40, 50, 100, 150, could be up there, but always a lot less. And with the promise that if is run by solar panels, you have no CO2. Wind is also in the 30, 40 gram per kilowatt hour range. That's because we make the steel with coal. If you don't make the steel with coal, it'll be zero. Nuclear is the same. If you don't make the steel and cement with coal, it'll be zero. So nuclear is a low CO2 source, just like solar and wind. It can be a zero CO2 source. CO2 is not the only problem. That's why I showed you that slide. Making plutonium just to boil water does. So you're replacing a carbon problem with a proliferation problem, and you're spending a lot of dollars doing it where you can do the same thing cheaper. So it's part of my kind of burden to give this message that saying what you said is a little bit more wrong than what Obama might have said. I think when they say zero, they mean close to zero. They may not mean it, but I'm willing to overlook that because it's more true than not. And even though, I have been a vigorous advocate of getting rid of nuclear power since before we had too many reactors. I've been doing this for more than 40 years.
You talked about getting rid of fire.
Yeah.
Maybe.
This comes from a guy who was hired by Austin Energy to think. Just a wonderful job. And I had lunch with him once, and he said, bolder than a renewable vision is to get rid of fire. So that means we not have biofuels, So fire is supposed to have defined, how we all became human beings and, civilized ultimately and so on. But it's not a very good, so we have solar photovoltaics or solar thermal, you're getting energy, no fire. And because fire is responsible for a lot of, doing it with fire is responsible for using a lot of water, a lot of thermal pollution, a lot of fires, of course, and fires that you don't want, and a lot of the air pollution, a lot of the water pollution, air pollution especially. So if you have biofuels, if you have biodiesel in your car, you're still creating air pollution with that. You're creating some particulates, you're creating some carbon monoxide, you're creating some unburned hydrocarbons in your house when you use natural gas for cooking or heating. So getting rid of fire, actually, I haven't written about this, but I think it's a brilliant concept for the energy system of the future, together with the distributed grid. So all of these pieces that I've talked about really fit into a larger, but it's a more visionary concept, and we're trying to aim for the next 25 years, and we can't get people to listen, so I don't by myself talk about it too much. Thank you, Linda, for pushing me, and for that being the last question.
Thank you, Arjun.
Just made it.
Hi folks, looks like we're going to be here at least 15 minutes.
Hello, Jimmy John's?
Someone order Jimmy John's?
Jimmy John's. Order online at jimmyjohns.com. Jimmy John's. Freaky fast delivery.
When your transmission is in trouble, it is important to find reliable and honest mechanics. National Transmission will get the job done right. Located at 4037 East Apple Avenue in Muskegon, you can call them at 231-788-3244.
I love to shop on the net. Just look at all this stuff.
We're pretty net savvy at Grange Insurance. We understand what the web does well
Buying insurance online? That's another matter.
and not so well.
Your partner in protection.
Akiko
Akiko Yoshida. She is from Tokyo, Japan. She came just for this weekend. This is her first time to the United States, so welcome, Akiko. Akiko works with Friends of the Earth, Japan, as nuclear and energy campaigner. Her files include Fukushima evacuation and compensation, and Japan's nuclear phase-out and energy shift. Akiko will speak to us for about 20 minutes, then show us some video, and we'll end with some Q&A from the floor. Welcome, Akiko.
Thank you very much for inviting me today to this significant and historical, very important day. This is for me the first time to come to US. Yesterday I had a very nice day and showed around the Lake Michigan and Henry Moore sculpture. Today I'm very happy to share you about the situation in Japan, especially about the situation in Fukushima. I'm now working for Friends of the Earth Japan for 6 years, and for nuclear and energy. After the disaster, we have decided to concentrate on the theme Fukushima and nuclear energy. This is the map of the radiation contamination you may have seen many times. The radioactive plume has first went to the direction northwest and then down to the south. This is the two big cities in Fukushima, Fukushima City and Koriyama. And these cities are highly contaminated. And this is the village Iitate, which is evacuated in June last year. This is the picture of September last year. And the rice fields are not anymore cultivated. The evacuees from Fukushima are still now 116,000 within Fukushima and also to other prefectures. I first introduce you about the protest against the 20 millisievert threshold for the school children. On 19th April last year, 2012, next, the Ministry of Education has announced a measurement of the maximum radiation dose in the school, building and yard, 20 millisievert per year. It was about 3.8 microsievert per hour. But this radiation dose standard was only for a school, within the school and in the schoolyard. It didn't include the inner contamination and exposure in their house. These 20 millisievert for school children. It was really high rate of contamination exposure. So many parents and citizens in Tokyo and Fukushima were very much angry about this announcement of the MEX and made big protest against that. This is the picture on the 23rd of May last year. Around 600 parents and citizens from Tokyo and Fukushima have surrounded the next building and made protest. They said, "Save children save children in Fukushima, and please roll back this 20 millisievert standard for children." We also have collected signatures from all over the world. About more than 50,000 people have signed this signature, and then we also talked to the ministry and Diet members, and on the 27th May, next informed to roll this back and to aim 1 millisievert per year. This standard for school children. But of course, many problems still remain. For example, this was only the target, and it is not yet fulfilled. About 20 millisievert per year, this standard. I have to share some information. In Japan and in many countries in Europe or also in US, the maximum radiation exposure dose for ordinary citizens is 1 millisievert per year. And also, and even for the nuclear workers, 5.2 millisievert. So from these standards, you can easily see that 20 millisievert easily very high standard is. And also especially for the children, it is extremely high standard. Now we have to remind about the evacuation zone in Chernobyl. Even in Chernobyl, the evacuation zone was settled with the 5 millisievert standard, the zone of resettlement. And in Chernobyl, they had the zone with right of with 1 millisievert per year. But how about it in Japan? In Japan, we had first these 20 kilometers and 30 kilometers radius from the Fukushima Daiichi as evacuation zone in March. And after that, because the radiation plume went to the northwest, they set this planned derivative evacuation area in April. And then settled these specific evacuation points in June. And for these two areas, derivative evacuation areas and special evacuation point, for the settlement of these areas were the 20 millisievert standard. So this area was settled to the points. The cumulative radiation dose was exceed 20 millisievert a year. And other areas were not settled as evacuation zone. For the people in these evacuation areas, the people in these evacuation areas has got the compensation, but outside of the area, they got nothing.
Muskegon's Hackley Public Library is an excellent source for help, information, and great entertainment on virtually any topic. The friendly, knowledgeable staff is always available to help you with finding information on any topic you need. They can help you with using the free public access computers, and they look forward to showing you books, audio CDs, DVDs, and much more. Whether you live in the city or outside, the Hackley Public Library in downtown Muskegon is there to help with everything imaginable.
Benson's Drug Company, the home of Benson's Bottom Paint. Offering an expanded grocery selection, Medicare billing, and diabetes management and education. Benson's now features a Kodak machine, which allows customers to edit, copy, and develop their own photos.
The Glenside and Northside pubs, from sandwiches, burgers, and Mexican food to starters, salads, soups, and desserts, not to mention their specialty pizzas like Hawaiian, vegetarian, chicken Alfredo, and of course their grand finale. It's the Glenside and Northside pubs.
Established in 1973 by Paul M. Lattis, Lattis & Hoops Law Offices has been a multi-service law firm specializing in accident cases, personal injury, wrongful death, Social Security disability, divorce, probate and wills, and real estate. When it comes to choosing the right attorney for your legal needs, don't choose out of town, choose local legal counsel. It really pays. It's experience when it counts. It's Lattis & Hoops Law Offices.
And some cities, like in this green area, the residents start to coming back, also children. And to this, the training receiver standard is still existing now. And this is the compensation scheme for the people in Fukushima. About the compensation, the government has discussed in the next Committee for Nuclear Damage Compensation. And they had announced a midterm report in August last year. And at that time, the compensation was also only limited within this yellow area, the official evacuation zone. And the amount was so, for official evacuation zone, and there were about 100,000 people in this yellow area. And these people have received 100,000 yen, about $1,250 a month. But in August, the other people have received nothing. So many people, many citizens in Fukushima, affected people, and also the citizens all Japan and also worldwide was strongly against this compensation scheme. And then at last in December, the compensation area was expanded to these blue areas. But the people in blue areas has contained only 80,000 yen per month, not per month, but for a year, for all, only once, for adult, and 400,000 yen for children. There were many families, especially women and children, evacuated on their own outside of the official evacuation zone. So this is the current evacuation and compensation scheme. This is 20 millisievert per year standard, and the people above this threshold, above this standard, is only compensated, and this area, in the blue area in the previous slide, has got not much but a little bit compensation and nothing for the others. For example, these blue areas is only limited within Fukushima, and there are also many hotspots, contaminated areas in neighboring prefectures like in Gunma or Tochigi or in Miyagi. So there is still many problems. So what we, NGOs and citizens, and especially the citizens in Fukushima, urge to the government is to enlarge this compensation scheme to right to evacuation. These are the voices we have collected from the affected people who evacuated on their own. We have delivered these voices to the nuclear compensation deputies in September last year. Radiation exposure is high, more than 1 microsievert per hour in my house. I'm worried about whether I should make my children live in such environment. Why do we need to be exposed to radiation every day? It was obviously a political decision that the government increased the criteria to 20 millisievert. That's why I made a decision by myself. My husband says we will keep living here because of our livelihoods, loan for our own house, and our business. I didn't give birth to my baby to make him or her ill. Many people have evacuated, but many people have also remained in Fukushima because of financial reason or because of their work. And because of that, they hadn't adequate compensation. So we had many times meeting with the government and the Diet members to talk with this problem and to change and to enlarge this compensation scheme and the evacuation policy. Our appeals are these: repeal of the 20 millisievert standard, stricter limit for children and pregnant women, as in the city of Minamisoma. The national standard was 20 millisievert, but some cities like Minamisoma has original standard for children and pregnant women that is lower standard than the other adults. And we also urge this such standard also to the Fukushima city, which was highly contaminated, but the Fukushima city and the prefecture of Fukushima has denied this. What they have always repeated was they do decontamination and they have 20 millisievert standard. This was the information meeting in Fukushima City, the government has informed that they don't set any evacuation points, special evacuation point in the city of Fukushima. So the evacuation on their own was called voluntary evacuation. And these pictures were in July and August against the midterm report of the compensation committee. We also have handed the surveys and the voices of the affected people to TEPCO for compensation. But TEPCO said that they only follow the compensation scheme of the government. And this is the action in front of the next building, Ministry of the Education. So this is the Fukushima prefecture, and the Fukushima city is in the north of Fukushima. And as I showed for the first, the middle of Fukushima was highly contaminated outside of the evacuation zone. Hotspots were especially in the east side of the Fukushima city. But this is the prefecture office, and this Watari district is a very big residential area. So the government has not settled this Fukushima city as evacuation zone or point because they also have concern about the damage of rubble. But there are so many households, more than 600, and there are also many children. Many children were remaining in the contaminated area more than 1 year.
The Village at Park Terrace Senior Living Community, offering beautiful yet affordable 1- and 2-bedroom apartment homes as well as 2-bedroom cottages. Rent includes a wide variety of exceptional services, from daily meals shared in the dining room or delivered to your door, to scheduled activities and social events, to 24-hour emergency on-call service. Their expert, caring staff is there to assist you with all of your retirement needs. The Village at Park Terrace Senior Living Community, where you can enjoy the luxuries and comfort of your own home without the work and worry.
Roll, tumble, jump, and dance with the stars here at Castle Dance and Gymnastics. From 16 months to adults, Castle offers a safe and friendly atmosphere. Located at 1180 Devon Drive, their number is 231-798-8418. Or find them at castlejimdance.com.
24 hours, 7 days a week, it's Ramos to the rescue. For accidents, lockouts, jump starts, tire changes, or gas delivery, the experienced drivers at Ramos Towing will be at your side within a matter of minutes. Whether it's a motorcycle, medium duty, or a flatbed, whatever you need, just remember, it's Ramos to the rescue.
Serving the Fruitport area for over 40 years, Grover Pharmacy offers a full line of vitamins, supplements, and homeopathic medicines, as well as a variety of glucometers, blood pressure kits, baby care items, bandages, and wound care products. They carry office and school supplies, Russell Stover candies, promotional and seasonal items, and Hallmark cards and gifts. Grover Pharmacy, they take time to care about you.
In the east side of the Fukushima was more than 3 microsievert per hour. This was the status in June, July last year. This is the result of automatic survey of the government. So there were many hotspots detected in these areas. And this is the contamination survey in October this year. Thus, the hotspots still remaining in this area and also in other cities in Fukushima. And the hotspots is moving from here to another place, but still remain there. The government said that they do decontamination, but the effect of decontamination is very limited because there are mountain area, and this is the Itate village, highly contaminated. And with the rain or with the wind, the radioactive materials comes always into the city. And this is the decontamination. Decontamination plan is for 2 years, and it is still ongoing. And the removed soil is stored in their backyard of the residents, like this. And there are no place to remove these soils. So the way of decontamination is so like this: remove the soil or wash the houses with high pressure water. So we have urged the government to enlarge the evacuation zone first, and for the adequate compensation, but it was not implemented yet. And then we urged the government for the short-term refreshment for the children. But it has also denied by the government and by the city or by the prefecture. So that's why we have started this voluntary project, Poka Poka project for Fukushima children. Poka Poka, this means warm or heartwarming, like in hot springs. There is a hot spring within the Fukushima city, in the west side. This is the Fukushima station, and this is Watari district on the east side, and this is Tsuchiyu hot spring in west side. And in this area, in west side, it is less contaminated. The radiation dose there is 0.1 to 0.2 microsievert per hour. So a little bit almost the same as in Tokyo or in Saitama. So we have started this project Poka Poka from January this year. This to support the children and family from this area to these hot springs for the weekends or so 2-3 days for refreshment. We provide the stay at the onsen hotels and provided the children to play outside of the buildings. And these are vegetables from the east side, west side of Japan, from not contaminated areas. So these vegetables and rices are donated from all of that over Japan. And children and family has could have relaxed time at this at the hot springs only for a short time, but they could have released themselves. This project, we continue this project still now on, and we are planning to do that until March next year, to provide the children and family relaxed time. So you may heard about this thyroid inspection through news. Thyroid examination was undertaken in the prefecture of Fukushima, but this is only for children, limited to children. That is also the problem. But through this examination, more than 30% of the examined children detected this small tobacco or pustule. But for this 30 or 40% of the children in A class, they are not examined, the detailed examined. Detailed examination is 2 years after this examination. And they said that it is no problem, it is only small, say the prefecture in the government. So now many parents and many mothers are still now considering about moving out from the Fukushima prefecture. But for that, the compensation is not enough. Still not enough. But there is one progress in this year, in June. A new law was enacted, Nuclear Accident Child Victims Law. This was submitted by the Diet members, and in cooperation with the citizens and affected people from Fukushima, this new law for the children and the Fukushima victims ensure the people, ensure the residents and also for the evacuees the right to live healthy. They ensure food safety at home and at school, health examination and medical fee remissions. And for the evacuees, job support, accommodation support, and to both study support for the children and support for children who live apart from their parents or from their family. But this law is not implemented yet, and this is only the framework. The detail is now to be determined, and for that process, decision-making process should be involved. Should be the victim and the affected people from Fukushima involved. These details for this law should be discussed with the participation of the people from Fukushima. That is what we, with the people from Fukushima, appealing to the government now.
Culver's Concrete Mixers, the creamiest way to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup. We put as much care into our fresh frozen custard as Reese's puts into its peanut butter cups. Not only do we use family farm fresh dairy, we also use the best vanilla and cocoa beans. Handcrafting each concrete mixer, it creates a perfect blend. Which brings us back to this, the creamiest way to eat a Reese's. Put the spoon in straight and tall, you've got a perfect concrete mixer. Welcome to Delicious.
Muskegon Area District Library, formerly the Muskegon County Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, offering public library books and magazines, both fiction and nonfiction, to visually and physically impaired individuals. With their new location at 4845 Airline Road, they can be contacted at 231-737-6310.
Your vehicle is an important part of your life. It gets you where you need to go. Take care of it by bringing it to Van's Car Wash and Quick Lube. At Van's Quick Lube, every vehicle gets up to 6 quarts of high-quality Quaker State oils, new oil filter, and a free car wash with every service. If you need a quick wash that is done right the first time, then stop by any convenient Van's Car Wash and experience the hand-scrubbed and Simonized difference. Keep your car running and looking great at Van's Car Wash and Quick Lube. 6 convenient locations, 1 near you.
show you a video.
福島市渡里地区事故以降、市内のホットスポットとして高い放射線量を計測してきました。今年2月から地域にある住宅6600戸の除染が始まっていますが、3ヶ月間で終了したのはわずか30戸です。9.9 ですね。
下水みんな高いんですよ。あとあそこも高いんですよ。下水。もう4人いるけど全然入れてはいないんですよ。これからちょっと自転車積んで放射能低いところに。だから土日毎週だから大変ですよね。燃料代が何か。
They go to another place for the weekend to have a refreshment.
飯舘村や南相馬に通じる国道脇にある弁天山のふもと、薬師町です。国際環境 NGO FOE ジャパンや福島老朽原発を考える会が行った調査によると、水路に堆積した土壌のセシウムは1キロあたり39万7565ベクレル。チェルノブイリの特別危険ゾーンを超える汚染が計測されています。
雨が降るたびに水が流れ、あとこの通り乾燥する。また雨が降る、水が流れる、乾燥する。それの繰り返しで、お湯とか土砂が集まってきて蓄積される。で、どんどん上がっていく。そういうふうな状態ですね。
ここはもう 3.0 が普通だからね、2.5 とかね、まあ見た通りね。子供さんとかなんか
5 to 3 microsievert bunkers.
だよ、それであんたキュッとあんたここにじゃダメだからっつって、あっちの親が連れてったよ。
This is the grandmother. He's gone to the prefecture to protest against the policy. This was the information meeting in the Fukushima city about the settlement of the evacuation point. But it has denied. man of the government. She's explaining about yes, the radiation dose in Fukushima is lower than other places. Maybe you have seen about the radiation exposure, but under 100 millisievert is no problem for the health. In Minamisoma there is a special evacuation standard for children and pregnant women. 2 microsievert per hour. This is the man from the Fukushima city. The evacuation point is settled by the government, not by the city. So we are not responsible for that. The information meeting was for 5 hours.
去年6月にスタートさせた特定避難干渉地点の制度。国の制度でありながら自治体によって基準に違いが出ています。
This is the Minamisoma city, which has the standard for children.
53世帯のうち8割以上の120世帯がこの基準によって指定されました。しかも8月3日に実施された第2次指定では72世帯全てがこの基準でした。渡り地区で暮らす
Once more in Watari district in Fukushima.
安倍さんの自宅は政府の調査で50センチの高さで毎時2マイクロシーベルトと言われています。
More than 2 microsievert was detected by the government research.
指定避難干渉地点に指定されるはずです。
It will be settled as an evacuation point in Minamisoma standard.
庭とか家の中をガイがパンダ借りてきて。
He has a small children, 1 year daughter.
福島市の県センターのあそこと違うじゃないで、窓際にいたんじゃまずいと戦力がで、一番低いのはここだったんですね。ここで今寝てる。
Around the window, the radiation was higher than here, so the baby sleeps here in front of the house. She hasn't been in their backyard yet. While the decontamination, I hope to be evacuated. This is the meeting with the government. We do the decontamination. My 1-year daughter is exposed on this time. The life of the children is really precious, so please think about that. Please do the survey once more. Our choice is only to remain here. works more than 30 microsievert per year.
行政の対応を待っていては遅い。自分たちの手で事態を変えていくために、今、複数の市民団体が協力し、新しいプロジェクトに着手しています。その名も福島ポカポカプロジェクト。福島市内で
So we cannot expect the government anymore.
土温泉に子どもたちを連れて行き、一時的に利用させるプロジェクトです。
So we have started this Poka Poka project with several citizens groups. He lives in the Watari district with his children. He cannot go because of his work. Until the decontamination is completed, we would like to evacuate the children. So this is the hotel at the Tsuchiyu Hot Spring. More than 2,000 people have participated to this project. This project is carried out with the donation. Thank you very much. 2 weeks later, from 15th to 17th December, IAEA is hold a meeting in Fukushima, in Koriyama, to discuss about decontamination or the nuclear energy in the future. So we are now planning a big conference, counter-conference to this. Big conference in Tokyo and counter actions in Koriyama. And I'm going to be there with the people in Fukushima. After the disaster, there are many sad and problematic things, and they are still going on. But sometimes we have something happy to work with the people in Fukushima and Tokyo and around together. So I'm also happy to meet with you here. Thank you very much.